In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you this beautiful cactus and the 5 things you ought to know when it comes to caring for what I believe to be a variety of prickly pear cactus. Now, I've had this for years and years and years. It hasn't bloomed, but I think there are some things I can do and just kind of check in on these care tips to see what is going well and what I could be doing better. So like I said, in this video, I'm going to be sharing 5 things that you ought to know when it comes to caring for your prickly pear cactus. So I am going to be repotting this prickly pear cactus in this new, slightly larger container that has a built-in saucer and obviously drainage in it. And like I said, I think I've had this for at least 4 or 5 years. I believe I got this at like Whole Foods or a really small local plant shop where I used to live 4 or 5 years ago. And it's grown a lot. Like I said, unfortunately, it's not flowered. It looks like I used an orchid bark mix for the soil composition, which I'm going to totally upgrade. And that's the first thing you ought to know. I'm going to mix up the soil composition and the different ingredients that I'm going to be using today for this cactus. And I'll show you exactly what all I'll be using in this new container. And I think it's going to be a lot happier. Thanks for checking out this video. I'm Tyler. If you like what you're seeing or you find this video to be useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, or better yet, you can hit that subscribe button. Now, to really show me some love, click on the bell for alerts and notifications for future content. Oh yeah, don't forget to check out my merch store, tylermossop.com. Today I'm going to be using 2 parts of a bonsai mix, or a really gravelly mix that you can see right along here. I'm going to be throwing in about 1 part of an orchid mix that has a little bit of perlite in there, as well as 1 part horticultural charcoal. Now, the whole goal is to have something super dry and well draining. The bark and the horticultural charcoal will help keep things a little bit chunkier and well draining, as well as the charcoal will obviously absorb any excess moisture, which will be great. And then obviously this gravel is just ideal for cacti. So I think this should do the trick. Let me mix this up, repot it, and jump into the 4 other things you ought to know. This thing's been in here for quite a few years, like I said, so hopefully this should need a little bit of coaxing to come out, and that's why I'm just kind of gently trying to loosen things up around the edge with this bamboo stick. But it seems like it's pretty root bound in there, so we'll give it a try and see if we can just kind of loosen things up. Let's see here, I should have in the middle. All right, so very carefully. Let's see. Good idea to wear gloves anytime you're working with any sort of cacti. Oh, guys, I don't know if this is gonna come. It needs a little bit more loosening. Oh. All right, jiggle, jiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And I think we might be in luck. All right, just bear with me, guys. Oh, definitely time for a repot on this guy. All right, there we go. All right, so let me just shake some of this off and give you a closer look at the roots. And yeah, be right back. As you can see, this was pretty root bound. It's pretty tight. So I'm gonna kind of loosen this up and, you know, get it a little bit loosened up before I put it in its new container. But I think it will be, you know, good to loosen this up and get it into some appropriate soil mix, like the soil mix that I'm using. And we'll see how the cactus does in its new home. So let's fill up the base with some of this really sort of gravelly, chunky, dry mix. So I think, you know, the most obvious care tip when it comes to caring for cactus or cacti is light. Obviously, these guys need a lot of full sun, bright light, and you know, I think the tricky part, at least if you live in the Northeast like I do, is 8 hours a day is kind of what's ideal, and that's not always easy in the Northeast, especially in the winter. So kind of monitoring the amount of light that it's getting and the quality of light, the more the merrier, and you should kind of strive for those 8 hours a day. Let's see here. So I should have a good amount in there. Let's see here. Perfect. So I did loosen up the base and tuck those roots in. And I'm just gonna kind of go around and fill up the rest of this container with this mix that I have without this thing falling over. So I do have just about shy of an inch of space around the root ball, which is kind of ideal. You don't want to go up a pot size where there's too much extra space in and around there, but see how much I can fill in here before jumping into those 3 remaining tips I want to talk about. We've talked about the soil composition, light, but I also want to jump into temperature, humidity, fertilization, and watering when it comes to caring for these beautiful plants. So let me finish filling that in, and then we can jump into those other tips. It's looking much better in its new, slightly larger container. This beautiful white container, keeping that sort of theme going. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot happier in this new container, in part because, as you saw, it was extraordinarily root bound, and now when this gets watered, the water should be able to drain right through and not kind of be sitting in the root ball. And obviously there's a built-in saucer like there was in the last one, so it shouldn't be kind of sitting in any excess water. Now, yeah, now that this is in its new home, I think it's gonna be a lot happier with this gritty, dry soil mix. But like I said, we've talked about lighting, we've talked about the soil composition. Let's jump into the 3 remaining things you ought to know. So when it comes to watering your prickly pear cactus, or cacti, succulents for that matter, it kind of goes without saying that less is more. So you don't really need to water these plants very frequently. The advice I'd like to give you for prickly pear cactus is, I would say, just once a month, especially you know, even less kind of throughout the course of the winter if it's getting a lot less than 8 hours of light like it does in my case. So again, watering, I would say veer on the side of cautious. Less, you know, is probably better. These are definitely drought tolerant plants, which means that they don't need to be watered all the time, and they're going to be a-okay without you watering them. So yeah, once a month, you know, just ever so slightly water them. Do not, however, mist your cactus or this prickly pear cactus, because that's going to get you into some trouble. Remember that your succulents really like dry soil, dry heat, and that dry weather. So having, you know, any sort of mist or overwatering these is not going to really do it any favors. Yeah, what else can we talk about? So fertilizing, if you're keeping these as indoor plants, as we're talking about today, you know, I think one thing that I've kind of gotten wrong on this plant is you can kind of look for signs, and what I've learned recently is that if your cactus is getting a paler coloration to it, a paler green, or it's not flowering. So I think in this case, I probably have under fertilized this, and I probably could have given it a little bit of a well-balanced diluted succulent fertilizer. Will go kind of the longest. So now that it's in this new home, I did go ahead and fertilize it a little bit with that well-balanced liquid diluted fertilizer. So I'm hoping that that does the trick. And another thing that I'm kind of curious about is I do kind of keep the humidity in and around the 50 or 60% in this sort of plant area. So I'm wondering if that's kind of also having an impact on this That definitely won't be the case in the winter because it's a lot harder for me to keep a higher humidity level in the winter time. But again, if it's getting less light, so obviously, if you are in the Northeast or you live in somewhere where it's, you know, a colder climate, I think the prickly pear is a good option because I think out of the multiple variety of cacti, these can tolerate a little bit of a cooler temperature. So, you know, they might last longer. These things live forever, which is really cool. But yeah, we've covered a lot. And I think that covers the 5 things that you ought to know: soil composition, light, fertilization, temperature and humidity, and watering. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's it for me. Until the next one. Well, that's it for me. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Definitely give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and yeah, miss you guys already. Until the next one.